Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you go ahead and have a seat, and then tell us your name and go ahead and spell it for the court reporter.
All right. I am Donovan Chase Boyd, Donovan, Boyd, Boyd.
Okay. And what do you do?
I am one of the sergeants for the school resource officers. So I supervise over half the county, depending on which semester we're in.
And are you with the Barrow County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as a sergeant, you said you supervise half the county. Tell me what you mean by half the county.
So we have the county split up into north and south as far as the number of schools that we have. So there are two sergeants. One of us is on the north side, and one of us is on the south side. And then each semester we flip. So we have equal exposure and working with everybody and being able to help everyone. So.
And about how many schools are on each side?
It's fairly equal. I didn't think to count how many, but like there's an equal number on both sides, thereabouts. Yeah.
And does that include elementary, middle, and high schools?
Yes, ma'am. So you'll have an equal number, more or less, on both sides, but the alternative school is actually located on the south side. So.
And then, as far as your role in overseeing that, kind of tell me what your day-to-day is like.
So it can vary as in any law enforcement capacity. Typically what I'm doing is I'm going and checking and making sure my guys have what they need. If they're dealing with an issue at a school, I try and be there to help them kind of work through things. Checking out on how they're doing personally and, just making sure that they have what they need to do the job that they're doing. Addressing any concerns or issues that may be going on. And then doing any kind of like spot training or planning for training in the summer.
And tell me what the typical job of a school resource officer is who is assigned to a school.
So our primary function is to see to the safety and security of the school. We also work very hard to establish relationships within the school, mentoring, working with students and staff, helping them with issues, not just in a law enforcement capacity, but doing community-oriented policing.
Generally, how many school resource officers are assigned to each school?
So each high school has two, and we are currently in the process of getting one in every middle and every elementary school. Prior to that, and even right now, we have a few middle and elementaries that share one SRO, and they go back and forth, and we actually have a set of elementary schools where the SRO goes back and forth. But at present, both high schools have two SROs assigned to them.
And generally, are you assigned to a particular school?
Not typically. We as the supervisors will fill in when an SRO is out sick or in training and that kind of thing, so there's not a gap. Or we'll go and check in at the school. But we're typically not assigned to a school per se.
Back in September of 2024, were you in your same role as sergeant over the school resource officers?
Yes, ma'am. So in 2024, at that time, I was a sergeant, and I was actually helping fill in at the Barrow Arts and Science Academy, which is one of our high schools.
Okay. Is that also known as BASA?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in addition to filling in as a school resource officer at BASA, did you still go around to other schools?
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to draw your attention to September 4th. Did you go to Apalachee High School that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you, at that point, temporarily assigned to BASA as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What brought you to Apalachee that day?
So that morning I was actually going to meet with one of my police explorers to give him a Bible. He participated in a Bible study that we do on Thursday nights, and he didn't have one at that time, so I was bringing him one. I actually went to the ROTC bay and dropped it off there, and I was also going to, while I was there, check in on the 2 SROs assigned there.
And what is the Police Explorers?
So the Police Explorers is through the Boy Scouts of America, or Scouting as it's known today, and it is a program for students and juveniles between the ages of 14 and 21 who have an interest in law enforcement. They can learn from us, and we do it once a week in a like training type capacity.
And so you indicated that you went to the ROTC office to drop that off. Can we pull up the full map? And I'll just have you, if you could look and tell us where on there the ROTC is.
Oh, goodness.
There should be a pointer up there after you kind of orient yourself.
Yeah, sorry. It's weird to see it in this format versus walking through. Use this? Yes, sir. Okay. All right.
Just for the record, is this 3.2?
This is 3.1 for the record.
Right. Sorry. Oh, gosh. So the ROTC bay is going to be right in here, I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly.
And do you remember approximately what time you got to the school that morning?
If I had to guess, it was somewhere between like 9:45, 9:50-ish, maybe.
And you indicated you wanted to check in on your 2 SROs who were assigned to that school. Who was assigned to the school at that time?
Deputy King and Deputy Matherly.
After dropping off the Bible at the ROTC bay,
Mm-hmm.
what did you do?
As I recall, I went back to the atrium. Do you want me to point to
Yes,
that?
yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So at that point, I went to the atrium here, and I ended up meeting with Deputy King. He was briefing me a little bit about a potential issue at the school, and we were also discussing, as I said, we do Bible study on Thursday night, so we were actually standing there talking about what that topic was going to be.
So you and Deputy King were in the atrium. Did you know where the other school resource officer was at that time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And when you say you ended up meeting Deputy King there, did y'all just kind of happen to run into each other?
I don't recall exactly if I met him there or on this hall here, but we made our way back to the atrium, as that's kind of a centralized hub where everyone kind of passes through and moves through. So that's kind of a natural place that we tend to gravitate to at that school.
So you indicated that he was briefing you a little bit on the situation that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what he told you?
As I recall, they were trying to locate a student that had expressed that they were.
And Judge, I think this would be hearsay at this point, unless Deputy King plans to testify. If he does, then.
Yes, Deputy King is testifying next.
Okay, that's fine.
You drawn?
I will draw.
Okay.
Would you like me to continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So he was speaking with me about how there was a kid that they were trying to locate that he had ended up leaving the classroom. And I believe that
And I'm sorry, he was coughing. I couldn't. What?
I'm sorry.
You said you were locating him, and then I couldn't hear the next part.
They were trying to locate a child that had left one of the classrooms. And again, my understanding was the student had requested to go to counseling. So they didn't make it to counseling, so we were just trying to figure out where the kid may or could have been.
Did you have any information that that student had made any direct threats or had any sort of firearms at that time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so before we go any further into September 4th, I want to briefly talk about your trainings and protocols as related to locking down a school.
Yes, sir.
So in a case such as what you had on September 4th, where a student has not made any direct threats, but is missing and you're trying to locate him, what protocol do y'all generally follow?
So for us, if admin is asking us to help look for a student, we will look in bathrooms, hallways, depending on where the student's coming from. We try and look kind of in the general area of where they may be roaming from to where they're trying to get to, without any additional indications of anything like that. It's not uncommon for students to take longer than anticipated to go from one point to another.
What is a hard lockdown?
So a hard lockdown is where everyone, at present, everyone goes into their classrooms, the doors are locked and secured, they go into what is known as a deep corner. So they are as invisible as possible. Lights are out, everyone's instructed to be quiet and wait until law enforcement comes by and unlocks and opens the door and removes them and moves them to another location.
And as far as entrances and exits to the building, are those all locked as well?
Yes, ma'am. So the schools always operate in what would be kind of a level 1 or a basic lockdown, where you don't have just free movement to come in and out of any exterior door into the building.
And what are some of the issues or risks associated with issuing a hard lockdown?
So depending on the situation, you can potentially create a barricaded armed individual in with other students or staff. That's the one that really kind of sticks out as far as why a lockdown could be an issue. Also panic, depending on what it is, and what would be the reasoning for us to issue the hard lockdown. Again, there's a lot of factors that kind of come into play, so it's hard to kind of give a concrete one way or the other, if that makes sense.
So in a situation where you are unable to locate a student who has a gun, the biggest risk of issuing a lockdown in that situation?
Could be, and again, it depends on if we're during the middle of a transition or if they're already in class, or if the student is not in class and we don't know where they are. So again, all of those are going to factor into whether or not we determine the best case or best course of action would be to do the lockdown or not. Ultimately, it's going to just kind of depend on a case-by-case basis.
And so in a case, I guess, where kids are in class, it's not a transition, and you are unable to locate a student who potentially has a gun, what's the risk of, is that the risk you were referring to of issuing a lockdown, creating a barricaded situation?
So if we don't have a reason to believe they're in a classroom necessarily, then that would reduce the risk. Ultimately, what we are typically doing with situations like this is we're letting the school make the call, unless it's something like what you're describing. But again, as far as that day went, we didn't have any indications of anything like that.
Okay. And so at that time, there was no, a hard lockdown was not something that y'all would have done in that situation?
With the limited amount of information that we currently had at that time, no, ma'am, because it's not uncommon for a student to leave the classroom to go to, say, guidance or counseling in a high school setting. And again, it would depend on the school that we're in. In an elementary school, if a child goes missing, we are more likely to call a lockdown in that regard, because then we don't have students moving about and it's easier to locate a missing juvenile in that age range because they can't really take care of themselves as much. In a middle school, it changes a little bit, but not as much. And then in the high school, because they're more apt to be able to take care of oneself, it's not as critical to do a hard lockdown just to locate a student that's missing from class.
And I guess is your main goal to find that student?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And of course, finding that student would prevent any future incidents if you found that student at that time, I guess. If the student had a gun and you found him, then that would hopefully eliminate the situation. Is that correct?
Sure. Yes, ma'am. And I mean, that does happen on occasion, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll circle back to September 4th.
Okay.
So you are in the atrium with Deputy King. What happened while you were there?
He and I were standing there, again, discussing Bible study after we'd kind of spoken about the very limited information we had at the time. There was a group of students with like the big pickle jars type things, and they were kind of tapping on those. And then we ended up kind of hearing like a tap, tap, tap. The best way I could kind of describe that would be like a muffled snare drum type sound is what it kind of sounded like at the time. I remember King and I both looked at each other for a split second and then went down the hall toward what we rightly assumed at that point was gunfire.
Okay. And did y'all attempt to go in the direction where the gunfire was coming from?
Yes, ma'am. That's one of the things we trained to do.
And tell me what happened as y'all are running towards the gunfire.
So do you want me to indicate where we were running down? Or?
Yeah, if you want to indicate first, and then you can sit back down after.
Sure. So I don't want to block anything. I'm sorry. That's better for the jurors. So we're here in the atrium, and we hear everything. And so we start heading down this hall here to what we would refer to as a T intersection because it makes a T. As we're coming down this way, as I recall, I got on the radio to let dispatch and other units know that we had an active shooter at Apalachee High School, and we just continued to that T intersection. Do you want me to continue with?
Yes, go ahead.
Once we got to this T intersection, there was a slight pause as we're listening because there was a brief moment where we didn't hear gunfire. And so we're trying to orient and see which direction to go because, again, you have two options. Then we round the corner. And when we make the turn and turn right down the hall, Deputy King and I are presented with a lot of smoke and dust in the hallway. The concussion from the AR firing and the drop ceiling, as best as I can understand, I'm not an engineer or anything like that, but the dust and everything shook down, making it very hard to see. All I could make out was a like dark or black silhouette in the smoke toward the end of the hall. It's actually, he was backlit because this exterior door here, you had sunlight coming in. We're down here when we first make the turn, and we end up making contact with them around in here where these bathrooms are. As we're coming down through here, I want to say somewhere in here, one of the victims was laying in the hallway. Because of the smoke and the dust and everything, I initially thought it was a duffel bag until I got close enough. Once we got pretty close to Colt, we were able to see that he was a student. The AR was down in front of him. He was compliant. We were able to get him down while Deputy King covered him with lethal cover. I proceeded to handcuff him and do a search and pat down for weapons and anything else. While doing that, I was able to take multiple full magazines for the AR-15 out of his pockets and kind of secure those out of the way. And then, as I recall, the next steps were to let dispatch and the other deputies know what we had, where we were at, and what we needed so we could start responding to everything else. that was going to need to be addressed after.
So as you indicated, as you round the corner, you saw a black silhouette.
Yes, ma'am.
What did y'all, at that point, did you know it was who y'all presumed was the shooter?
No, ma'am.
What did y'all say as you round the corner and saw that?
Show us your hands, get on the ground, drop the weapon, all things that we practice and trained to say. Again, at that point, we didn't know if it was a student, we didn't know if it was a staff member or teacher, and we didn't know if it was the shooter. We were purely going and trying to make contact with whoever it was in the hallway so we could make an assessment of where to go from there.
As y'all continued to run down the hallway, did y'all know if he had dropped the gun at that point?
No, ma'am. Again, we could not see.
So y'all are basically just running in blind?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you take him into custody and you search him and you take out the magazines. At that point that you are telling dispatch, hey, this is what we need, what do you start doing?
I'm on the radio saying that we need to shut down the front from like Tom Miller down to like not quite to Carl Bethlehem, but like over by Kendall Park, so that we can get med teams in and that kind of stuff. I let them know that we had one in custody, that we don't know if there's any other shooters. I have no idea how many are wounded. I have one in the hallway that I'm unsure if there's anything that we can do for, and I'm not exactly sure how I phrased that at the time. And at that point, we're just kind of holding the hallway because it was just King and I at that moment having to hold. So we're having to hold here, which is terrible to try and do with two people. Because again, we don't know, sorry, we don't know if there's any additional threats at the time. So we're having to try and hold, and we have to keep control of Colt, and we're responsible for him at that point once we took him into custody. Excuse me. A short time, and it felt like a long time, but a short time later, Deputy Cook responded from Heyman Morris, and he helped us hold things until additional units got there.
And were additional units there pretty quickly?
Yes, ma'am. I would say that they were there very quickly. I do recall the colonel, sheriff, Jeremy, one of the firefighter guys, with one of our RTF teams, got there very quickly, and they were in there and they started working through and triaging and figuring out who needed assistance and things, so we were able to get people out pretty quickly.
And RTF, does that stand for Rescue Task Force?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So when more individuals get there, more law enforcement get there, and you're no longer having to hold kind of the scene with the shooter, what did you do?
So at that point, we were going to have to systematically sweep the school and check the condition of everybody and start evacuation processes. As SROs, all of us in the unit have universal keys that work for all the school buildings. So when we started forming the teams up to go, I had a set of keys. So I started going and clearing with a group of some of our guys, but we had so many people that responded from all over the state. So we had people from Gwinnett and Commerce and GBI and FBI and GSP, but we went through and started the systematic, methodical clearing or static clearing of the building at that point.
And then you indicated you weren't, at that point, sure if there were other threats.
Correct.
Is that something else you were looking for to make sure that there were no additional shooters in the building?
Yes, ma'am. We never assumed that the singular threat that we've dealt with is the only threat until we do a sweep and subsequent sweeps of the building to make sure that there isn't someone else who is either waiting or is actively doing violence.
And on this particular day, were there potential threats at other schools as well?
So during the process of clearing Apalachee for the second or third time, I don't exactly recall where we were in that because of the building I cleared multiple times. We were getting reports of threats against other schools, like Winder Barrow was one of those. So at that point, they took people from Apalachee and started sending them out to the other schools to sweep them and make sure that they were good. At that point, Deputy Good, who had come to the scene and was the SRO the previous year, he and I, who were at Bassa normally, left this school and went over to Bassa and cleared it and held things there until I came back later in the evening.
I don't have anything further. Thank you. The defense may have some questions.
Well, just a few things, thank you. Good morning, Sergeant.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Great, thank you. Just want to ask you a few questions. You gave a statement to, I think, David Kissinger, GBI special agent, shortly after the incident. Is that right?
It was that evening, yes, sir.
Okay. You remember indicating to him that you arrived about 10:30.
Sure. I don't exactly recall the time, no, sir.
I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
No, I
I'm
get
glad
it.
to show you if you'd like one.
No, and I believe you have no reason to think that it's
Do you
not.
recall it was about that time, though?
Sure.
Okay. And you indicated to us that you were having conversations. Was there more than one person there that you were talking with? In other words, was an assistant principal there at that time?
I don't recall.
Don't recall. How long were you there before you heard the first shot?
I'm not sure. I wasn't keeping track of it.
Well, were you having conversations when you heard the first shot?
Yes, sir. I was speaking with Deputy King, as I recall.
And Deputy King had indicated to you that they didn't have a description of this young man that you
Correct.
were looking for, correct?
Mm.
Did he indicate to you that that Ms. Harris had emailed Lisa Butler at 8:56 telling her that this is somebody that y'all need to check up on and look at?
Not that I recall, no, sir.
Did the assistant principal give you any information about this person?
Not that I recall.
So the only information that you got was from Detective King that there was somebody that y'all needed to look for?
Deputy King, as far as I recall, yes, sir.
Okay, but you didn't know what they looked like.
No, sir.
Did he indicate to you that he had already been looking in any of the bathrooms or anything?
As I recall, yes.
Okay, and do you recall which bathrooms he said he had looked in?
No, not specifically.
So you don't really know, other than you know that y'all were looking for somebody. Do you know how long people had been searching for this person?
No, sir.
So if there was an email from Ms. Harris to counselor at 8:56, it would have been about an hour and a half before the shooting, is that right?
I guess if it occurred around 10:30 and you're saying that the email was at 9, then yeah, I would think the math would, yeah, an hour and a half.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Redirect.
Nothing further from the state, Your Honor. May he be excused?
Ready to go. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take a little morning restroom break, 10 to 15 minutes.